Ready in the back, Miss Apodaca.
Yes, we're ready.
And Madam Court Reporter, are you back from lunch? Mr. Rosatos, are you with us? And Mr. Lampkin?
I'm here.
Madam Court Reporter, are you back with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Loud and clear. Mr. Rosatos?
I'm here as well. Sorry.
No problem. All right, Madam Court Reporter, let's go back on the record.
Absolutely. Stand by. Oops. Come on. 1 second.
Sorry, what was that?
We are back on the record. The time is 1:06 p.m.
Okay, Mr. Rankin, you have another witness, David White, is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. Yeah, Mr. David White will be our next witness.
And I'm assuming he's remote. I don't.
No, actually, Mr. White is here. He
Oh,
drove
there
up from
he is.
Albuquerque this morning.
All right. I thought I saw a new face in the audience. Mr. Wright, White, if you'll raise your right hand, you swear and affirm the testimony you give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer. Mr. White, good afternoon. Will you please state your full name for the record?
David Allen White.
By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Geolex Incorporated.
Have you,
I serve as the vice president and senior geologist.
have you previously testified before the commission?
I have.
Are you familiar with Goodnight's application filed in these consolidated cases?
I am.
Have your credentials as an expert witness in saltwater disposal and acid gas injection well permitting and design, petroleum geology, hydrogeology, seismic interpretation, and fault slip probability modeling been accepted and made a matter of record before the commission?
Yes.
Did you conduct an independent review of the geology and stratigraphy in the area of Goodnight Midstream's SWDs within the EMSU?
Yes, I did.
And did you also investigate the relationship between the San Andreas Formation and the geologic formations adjacent to and overlying it?
Yes, I did.
And did you do a peer review of Goodnight's analysis of its updated regional evaluation of the San Andreas Formation groundwater characteristics?
Yes, I did.
Any corrections or changes to the testimony exhibits that were filed?
No.
Do you adopt the testimony in the self-affirmed rebuttal statement marked as Exhibit I as your own sworn testimony today?
I do.
At this time, Mr. Hearing Officer, I would move, or rather tender Mr. White as an expert witness in saltwater disposal and acid gas injection well permitting and design, petroleum geology, seismic interpretation, and fault slip probability modeling.
That's a long list.
It is.
Empire, any objection?
No objection, Mr. Examiner.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. OCD,
No objection.
Rice,
No objection, as long as I get a list of what
Yeah.
those things are afterwards.
I didn't want Mr. White to be downgraded because he's got a list, and I want to make sure that every time he appears, he's always qualified on that list. So,
fair enough.
okay.
Pilot,
No objections.
he'll be so recognized.
At this time, also, Mr. Hearing Officer, I would move the admission into evidence of Mr. White's rebuttal testimony in Exhibit I, Attachment 1, and Exhibits I-1 through I-13.
Empire, any objection?
No objection, Mr. Examiner.
OCD,
I'm going to object to this to be admitted until the completion of his full examination to confirm that it actually reflects his testimony.
okay. Mr. Beck
No objection.
and Pilot.
No objection.
All right. We'll reserve. Well, I'm not sure how to. I'm going to admit the exhibits over OCD's objection. OCD, you're going to need to keep track of what is and isn't covered in that objection. I mean, in the exhibits, and you know, you're welcome to cross-examine on all of it, including stuff that wasn't covered. Okay.
I'm acutely aware of that, Mr. Hearing Officer. Thank you, though.
All right. Mr. Rankin.
I guess depending on what happens with this objection, I just wanted to reserve the right to respond to anything because my understanding has been that we're simply providing a summary opinion and or any additional responses to testimony that have been provided. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You'll have the right to respond. I guess, you know, if you tender an exhibit from an expert witness that has listed areas that, you know, of testimony and information that are covered, basically you're opening the door, in my view, to cross-examination on that, whether you examine the witness on direct on those points or not.
I understand. That's my understanding as well.
Okay, good.
Mr. White, did you prepare summary slides reflecting your analysis and opinions?
I did.
I'm going to move to these slides. I'll walk you through them. And if you would, Mr. White, at a high level, just review for the commission. Oops, 1 second. It's not working. It goes. Give us a explanation of what you did with your analysis was with respect to the stratigraphic analysis, and what are your opinions based on your work?
Yeah, so as we'll cover in some of the slides in this overview presentation, one of our objectives was to review the stratigraphy of what we would refer to as the project area, the area in and around Goodnight's SWD injection wells, for the purposes of confirming stratigraphic relationships that have been delineated in regional stratigraphic models. To provide a little bit of overview in the slide that's currently shown, we summarize information relevant and opinions relating to that stratigraphic analysis. First, being that Goodnight's existing and proposed wells are located on the western edge of the Central Basin Platform, which to the west transitions into the Delaware Basin. Strata of the Capitan Reef and the Goat Seep are not present or have not been identified in Goodnight's well locations. And the San Andres Margin and Capitan Reef complex, from our stratigraphic analysis, appear to be separated laterally by about 2 to 2.6 miles. In reviewing regional stratigraphic models and as demonstrated by local well control, we interpret that and confirm that the San Andres Formation is not stratigraphically or temporarily equivalent to the Capitan Reef complex. Down towards the basin, San Andres shelf facies, which are utilized as saltwater disposal injection zone, grade to slope carbonates and basinal equivalent strata. Specifically, the San Andres is correlative to the lower Cherry Canyon and Brushy Canyon members of the Delaware Mountain Group, all of which, as we'll see, underlie the Capitan Reef complex. The San Andres Formation in general reflects cyclic deposition of shallow marine carbonates and forest slope carbonates, which grade, as we mentioned, into the deeper basin to fine-grained, low porosity and low permeability slope carbonates, and further to tight siltstones, shales in some instances, and fine sandstones, further from the shelf edge and basin equivalent strata. porosity within the San Andreas Formation, as I think some of the testimony has mentioned at times in this case, is generally facies specific. As sediments transition basinward to more slope, fine grain carbonates, we see a general diminishment of porosity from that shelf to slope transition and foreslope environments. And ultimately, facies tracks and as shown in some of the work of other authors, ultimately preserves porous and non-porous zones in a particularly tortuous way.
Just for clarification, Mr. White, I think I heard you say temporarily equivalent, but I think you meant to say temporally.
Temporally, that's correct.
Thank you. Explain what this next image shows and how it relates to your stratigraphic analysis.
So as I mentioned, one of our objectives was ultimately confirm results of regional stratigraphic models that are more modern and are commonly presented in literature and what we view as being reflecting the best understanding of stratigraphic relationships. This slide shows work by multiple authors, including Charlie Cairns, which is presented in recent conferences and literature, and would be one of the most widely accepted stratigraphic models. In this model, which, as you can see from some of the annotations, is an exhibit that has been submitted already as part of this case by other experts, shows has annotations for the Grayburg Formation as well as the San Andreas Formation. And my apologies that some of the detailed information in this is probably a little difficult to read, but ultimately showing the Grayburg Formation being stratigraphically equivalent to the Goat Seep and Bell Canyon geologic intervals as it moves from shelf to basin sediments, whereas the San Andreas is stratigraphically equivalent to the Brushy Canyon and the Cherry Canyon portion of the stratigraphy.
And just for clarification, Mr. White, the additional annotations here were inserted by Mr. McGuire, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Anything further on this slide? Anything further on this slide?
No, only to that effect that some of the text on the diagram itself is in accordance with those annotations.
Explain what this next graph shows and where it came from and what you did to annotate or change it in any way.
Absolutely. And this is what is shown in here is a more simplified stratigraphic model that has similar interpretations of the stratigraphic relationships published as noted there in Mellom and Scholl, which again, in a more simplified way and probably easier to read, shows the stratigraphic relationships of the Grayburg Formation adjacent to the Goat Seep Formation and Bell Canyon members, as well as the San Andreas and Cherry Canyon tongue being equivalent to the Cherry Canyon and Brushy Canyon formations. Now, what was modified from this diagram was the portion of the diagram to the left of the vertical red bar. The original publication did not include the San Andreas, but as we're using this as a means to more clearly show those relationships, that area was filled in accordance with the stratigraphic relationship shown in the Cairns model.
Anything further on this?
No.
Okay, this next graph here or slide here, explain what these cross sections lines are and how they relate to your analysis that you're going to address in the subsequent slides.
Sure. In the general location map shown to the right, we have wells in the greater project area plotted, as well as the transect lines of 4 cross sections, which were evaluated with the primary objective of confirming or with an objective of confirming that regional stratigraphic model interpretations are what is observed in the relationships of the San Andres and the Capitan Reef complex are in agreement with those regional interpretations.
Anything further on this slide?
No.
Next slide here, is this one of the cross-section lines that you showed on the previous map?
That's correct.
Will you review what this shows in your analysis?
Yes, and this is one of the cross sections from the written testimony that was submitted previously. This cross section is cross section T1 through T1 prime, which would be the northernmost cross section in the location map on the previous slide. And just to make sure everybody's clear with this, the cross sections move from east to west or towards the basin, such that for clarity of reviewing them and comparison to regional models, they are both oriented in the same way. So what we see as we move from the left side of the cross section, you see various colored lines connecting well log information in which various geologic formations have been identified. The interval that is a matter of this hearing, the San Andres Formation has been illustrated with the background and annotation for disposal zone, where we interpret the transition of the San Andres into various basinal equivalent facies or slope to basin facies have been illustrated with brown and various infilled backgrounds.
And just to be clear, Mr. White, if I'm looking at this from on the left side is east and the right side is west, correct?
That is correct. Moving from shelf to basin environments.
And that's true for each of the following cross sections, right? Is that true for each of the following?
That would be correct. However, for the purposes of this overview presentation, this is the only cross section that is included in this presentation.
Got it.
However, the other cross sections that were shown in the location map are included in the written testimony.
Thank you. Okay, what does this next slide show? And again, how does it relate to your analysis regarding stratigraphy in the area?
Could we also go back to the previous slide so I can make one more kind of description? So overall, as we look at the cross section, what we interpret is that the stratigraphy and through the analysis of other cross sections as we moved from basin or from shelf to basin, north to south across the project area, is that we do see results that are in agreement with regional stratigraphic models where Delaware Basin equivalent strata are stratigraphically equivalent to San Andres Formation in the way of the Brushy Canyon member and the Lower Cherry Canyon member of the Delaware Mountain Group. We also see in the westernmost portion of this cross section, the last and the previous wells as being the wells where we interpret the Capitan Reef and or Goat Seep Reef being present.
Thank you. Anything further on this slide, Mr. White?
No.
Okay. Next slide here. Explain what these two diagrams show and how they relate to your analysis of the San Andres.
So in conjunction with the stratigraphic analysis, we also want to understand any potential connectivity to overlying and adjacent strata. And what our research and log analysis has yielded is ultimately we expect that towards the basin as San Andres Formation shelf deposits transition to finer grain muds and slope transitional sediments into the deeper basin, we expect, and literature would support, a diminishment of porosity in that direction. And what is shown in panel A of this slide is a figure modified from Sarge and Lehman, 1986, in which San Andres Formation facies tracts were assessed and about described. And the panel A shows the facies tracts associated with the San Andres from left, more landward facies, progressing to the right to more basinal facies or basinward facies. And I think has been provided in testimony and in characterization of the San Andres Formation. Porosity generally is most frequently found in grainstone dominated facies, whereas more landward evaporite facies, porosity is less developed, and also less developed within the basin or the shelf to basin transition intervals. And so what's shown here diagrammatically in panel A is as the San Andres formation is a progradational or a reflection of progradational systems, these facies of which porosity develops at times and facies in which are less likely to have porosity development as these shelf systems prograde basinward, it ultimately can produce complex vertical units of porous and non-porous carbonates.
Anything further on that slide, Mr. White?
Yeah, I'd like to move to panel B.
Oh, yeah.
Panel B is the result of the work of one of our geologists in a consulting fashion, which was completed on the Penwell field in Ector County, Texas. And what we're seeing is the resultant interpretation of that work, which included the description and collection of core from the San Andres, as well as the description and investigation utilizing cuttings. And based on these spacing or based on this analysis, the final interpretation was in accordance with the reservoir characteristics in panel A, in that the interpretation included intervals of stacked and more complicated intervals of porous and non-porous carbonates.
Didn't mean to cut you off on panel B. Anything further on this one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. This next slide here, Mr. Wade, explain what these two images show and how they relate to your assessment about the San Andres relative to the Capitan Reef.
So the diagrams included in this slide are ultimately a product of demonstrating the results of our stratigraphic analysis. The first shown in the top left, which is annotated as panel B, illustrates a cross-sectional view of the project area as we understand it from well log analysis, whereas we see the approximate western extent of the San Andres Shelf, the approximate western extent of the Grayburg Shelf, and an annotation of the lateral distance between the San Andres Shelf margin and the back reef extent of the Capitan Reef complex. That's denoted by the red double-ended arrow. Also, what is shown is diagrammatically the vertical offset and the intervening strata of the Bell Canyon member that separates basinal equivalent San Andres Formation sediments from the base of the Capitan Reef complex. In the panel to the right, which is labeled as A, we see a map view of that interpretation where, based on the well log data, we approximate the San Andres shelf edge. We approximate the basin to slope transition area and the easternmost edge of the Capitan Reef complex.
Anything further on this one, Mr. White?
No.
Review for us what you did in terms of reviewing and confirming the work that Goodnight had done, evaluating the chemistry aspects of the San Andres.
Sure, and similar to one of the previous slides, the information in this slide just provides a review of some of the critical information about this work, as well as our opinions regarding this work. And as stated here, GeoLex was asked to conduct essentially what would be a peer review of Goodnight's methodology for verification of groundwater data. This was based ultimately on their objectives to better characterize what available groundwater data they had for the San Andres Formation, which, as part of our peer review, included USGS reported sampling, the NatCarb, GOTEC databases, as well as review of the HIS 1975 data within the greater project area. In completing this review, data, reported samples were scrutinized to gather as much information about the well construction history. Well documents were reviewed to verify if the circumstances of each particular well or sample was adequate for identifying it to be solely sourced from the San Andres Formation, rather than being a commingled sample, a sample that was incorrectly reported or incorrectly transcribed. And as part of this, the Goodnight had, I believe through a FOIA request, attained some of the supplemental tabulated information from the HIS 1975 work. So those data were cross-checked against map data and to ensure that all of the data could be confirmed. So some of the examples of a sample that couldn't be verified, as I briefly mentioned, would be looking at the data and seeing that a well never was drilled to the depth to reach the San Andres. In those instances, those data would not be included in a regional analysis, as they could not be verified to be solely reflective of San Andres. Additionally, if well documents or records suggested that the sampling was done in an open hole that appeared to be commingled with another formation, those would not be included in Goodnight's kind of regional compilation of data and verification of data. With respect to the area that we reviewed, which is, I believe, 14 contiguous sections in the area of Goodnight's wells and near Hobbs, New Mexico, we have, on a sample-by-sample basis, reviewed those documents and agree with Goodnight's verification of those data.
Anything further on this slide?
Yes, but there's a little bit of one more thing. So kind of separate from this, moving to a different topic, as described in the last bullet point here, as the topic of potential communication with the Capitan Reef and underground sources of drinking water. We also reviewed and did brief review of documents in and around the Hobbs and Eunice, New Mexico area to understand if those communities or municipalities had any reliance on the Capitan Reef.
And you'll address that in a subsequent slide?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything further on this slide?
No.
Okay. here, explain what you've done to verify the data and what the results show.
Shown in this slide is the result of our peer review, which show the mapped locations for groundwater sample data that were available to us for the review. Ultimately, this verification process was applied, as I mentioned previously, to the USGS data, the NatCarb and GOTEC data. And in this map, we show those data points which can be confidently verified as being sourced from the San Andres Formation. This map also includes additional data that have been reported in published literature, for example, of Strickland et al., and samples that were, the analysis records were provided and are reflective of Goodnight Midstream's SWD wells.
Anything further on this slide?
Only that it may be a little difficult to see, but kind of the pinkish reddish polygons that are coloring in certain township and ranges are the location or are the locations for which our review was completed.
Okay. I think this is your last slide, Mr. Wright. Just explain what you did in addition to the chemistry study to evaluate potential reliance on drinking water in the communities around this area.
Yes, this slide shows essentially 3 excerpts and sources of information about groundwater supplies or water supplies for areas of Hobbs, New Mexico, Eunice, New Mexico, and a quick excerpt from a regional water plan developed by the Office of the State Engineer. What excerpts of the text of these reports is included is for Hobbs and Eunice respectively, statements in these reports that confirm that these municipalities currently have no reliance on the Capitan solely sourcing their municipal water supplies from shallow groundwater of the Ogallala Aquifer. These reports were distributed in 2023. Since submittal of my written testimony, I have reviewed 2024 Hobbs, New Mexico reports that show that this is still in accordance. The Lee County Regional Water Plan, the excerpt that is included here ultimately speaks to the quality of groundwater resources in the Capitan being characterized as very poor, and as has been communicated by other experts in this case, ultimately that total dissolved solids concentrations range in excess of 10,000 parts per million or milligrams per liter, and ultimately exceed thresholds required for USDW groundwater.
Anything further on this last slide, Mr. White?
No.
Mr. White, this testimony you just provided is a summary of the testimony that you've adopted as your own in your rebuttal exhibit I, correct?
That is correct.
And each of these reports that you refer to, they're included in their entirety and as attachments or exhibits to your testimony?
That is correct.
And you didn't address every one of your exhibits in your testimony, but through the adoption of your rebuttal testimony, those exhibits are incorporated and referenced in your testimony, correct? In your written testimony?
That is correct.
Mr. Hearing Officer, I don't believe I have any further questions of Mr. White, and make them available for cross-examination on not only what he said here, but on his written rebuttal testimony as well.
Thank you for making that perfectly clear. Empire?
Mr. Examiner, we've agreed with Mr. Mollander that he be allowed to go first. We don't have any cross-examination of Mr. White unless Mr. Mollander can come up with something dramatically different.
tweaks your interests. All right, Mr. Moander, you're up.
And I'll represent that that is correct from Mr. Padilla. I don't anticipate going into areas that will arouse a need for further examination by, or any examination by Goodnight. Mr. White, I'm going to need just a second to get my screens up, and my poor computer is really tired of my PDF collection. All right. There we go. All right, do I need to zoom in for you a little bit, Mr. White? Because I realize I highlighted it. It's also doesn't look great on the screens.
No, sir, I can navigate it.
Excellent. And I think you could probably guess, just reading this, that this comes from your rebuttal testimony. Is that right?
That is correct.
And that'd be, at this point, we're looking at paragraphs 13 and 14. So paragraph 13 outlines what I'll describe here as sort of data sources that both, I'd say, you and Goodnight relied upon. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That includes, and this won't be a comprehensive list, but to give some examples and particularity, USGS data.
That's correct. Mhm.
GoTech data,
That's correct.
NatCarb as well,
That's correct.
independent well data.
That's correct.
And we just saw the municipal reports on the last document. Is that right? We'll call them municipal or county documents that you would review.
You mean summarized on the last slide?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
And then you had some test data from individual wells.
That's correct.
So then going to paragraph 14, this is what I've labeled sort of the methods or methodology. For example, one of the things that was done is data was controlled through screening for confirming formations and interval depth.
That's correct.
Would it surprise you to hear that OCD thinks this is a good model and we appreciate the work that was done on it?
No, I don't think so.
And in your opinion, would you construe this as comprehensive, your report and your analysis?
I mean, as a scientist, I think it's comprehensive with respect to the available data.
That's an excellent point, Mr. Wright. I appreciate that. So more quality data improves analyses, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think ultimately that is some of the motivation for this work in making sure however these reservoirs and relationships are interpreted, they are based on data that there is a confidence in.
And OCD absolutely agrees with you. And in fact, if we look at paragraph 13, the second sentence, it says Goodnight has completed a review of available groundwater data for the purpose of developing a more thorough spatial assessment of regional groundwater characteristics and building upon the work of prior investigators, right?
That's correct.
And then GLX also seems to really believe in that because the first sentence in paragraph 15 says, as part of our retention, GLX completed a peer review of Goodnight Midstream's methodology for the verification of groundwater chemistry data, right?
That's correct.
I do not have any additional questions for this witness. I will pass the witness.
All right, we're going to call him one of OCD's witnesses based on that cross-exam. Just kidding. All right, Rice, questions for Mr. White? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to stop the sharing here too.
Thank you. Mr. Padilla, was there anything there that was of such significance to Empire that you would like to cross-examine Mr. White?
Nothing, Mr. Examiner.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Beck for Rice
No questions.
and Mr. Suazo for Pilot.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Oh, let's reverse order. Dr. Ampoma, let's start with you.
Thank you, Mr. White, for your testimony today. Probably will be very, very short and brief. So I want to know, so from, if we can have your slide number 3 up, I do have a quick question there. Okay. Now, and probably, maybe let's go to the number 4. I think that one was more or less much better. Yeah, right here. So is the GoSeep in communication with the Capital Reef based on your analysis?
So we didn't really look at the relationship of the Goat Seep Reef to the Capitan and that interface and what to expect in terms of communication between the two. In looking at the base of the Goat Seep and the Grayberg, it does look like the base of the Goat Seep is more dolomitic. It seems a little tighter, at least for a limited interval at that interface. But didn't explore the relationship between the Goat Seep and the Capitan with respect to communication.
Now let me ask: is the GoSeep an aquifer that is a concern?
An aquifer in terms of a USDW?
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Now, you said you did not really look into the relationship between the GoSeep and the Capital Reef. Now, don't you believe, or could there be a possibility where, let's say, if there is any communication between the GoSeep and the reservoirs, either the Greenback or the San Andres, there could be at a point in time where there can be some impact, on the Capital Reef from the GoSeep?
Well, I think ultimately the characteristics of the geologic strata that separate vertically those two intervals, we have confidence, and they display characteristics that I don't think they would have much transmission capability between them. As we move out of the San Andres in the basinward direction, we expect to see, in facies tract progression, would expect to see low permeability and thus reduced communication in the basinward direction. Additionally, when we're transitioning into the silts and the finer grain clastic sediments, again, we would expect not a lot in terms of vertical communication potential.
Are there any existing monitoring wells, or let's say monitoring capabilities that is probably in the that exists in the Capital Reef that you know?
Not that I'm immediately aware of at this moment. I know there's limited data, I think, at times in terms of being able to monitor it.
Now, do we know the chemistry of the Capital Reef, the water chemistry?
While we didn't, complete any comprehensive water chemistry study, I think, the aggregate of kind of water compilation data could be utilized for that.
So if OCD is requesting for monitoring in the Capital Reef as a result of any operations that is ongoing, do we have a baseline?
Well, I think we would need to establish one.
Okay, thank you, sir. No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Lamkin?
I do not have any questions for Mr. White. Thank you.
All right. Chairman Rosato's questions for Mr. White.
I do not have any questions for Mr. White either. Thank you, Mr. White.
Mr. Chandler, any questions from you? All right, then we come back to Mr. Rankin for redirect of Mr. White.
Mr. Hearing Officer, I have no redirect for Mr. White.
Okay, Empire, may this witness be excused.
Yes, sir, he may.
OCD,
Yes, sir.
Rice,
Yes.
Pilot.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I think for the record, that sets a record for witness duration in this case.
I'm glad that I hold it.
Okay, so what are we gonna do now, Mr. Rankin?
I want to stick around for the duck to quack. No, I'm just kidding. I think we can all get 50 minutes of our lives back. We will resume at the pleasure of the commission. I would ask that we resume on May 19th with our final witness, Mr. Preston McGuire.
Okay, he's not available now.
No, and nor have we completed a summary slide since we haven't shared them with council. I did not expect that we would have set a record today, so I didn't know that we were going to be done.
Well, I'll just tell you what John Conway told me a number of years ago. When you're out of witnesses, you're out of trial.
Well,
I second that motion.
yeah. I understand. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, you guys have done really well on the timing. It makes me wish that we had imposed these time limits 3 weeks ago.
Let them to spend 5 minutes on the findings of fact and scheduling. Get that.
Yeah.
Want to raise that?
Mr. Hearing Officer, I guess there's one item that's open still on the last witness, and that was, I guess, Mr. Miranda's objection to admission of that Exhibit I, and his attachment. So I just want to make sure that that's been resolved.
I'll withdraw my objection.
Okay, thank you. They were admitted over your objection. Now they're admitted under
Also
your
true.
objection. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't know if the record was clear.
Okay, appreciate it. Mr. Chandler?
During the next break of time, are the parties going to get together and have a stipulated post-hearing schedule of findings of fact, et cetera? And when would we expect to see that?
Just to clarify, you mean not right now, like during the interim prior to the reconvening of the hearing?
Yeah, Mr. Hearing Officer, yeah, I'm not going to put you on the spot now, but I would like you during the interim to work together and have a stipulated calendar post-hearing.
OCD will agree to work on that. I don't think that should pose a problem unless somebody else does.
I think it's a good idea, Mr. Chandler, and we will engage with parties to confer.
And we're just talking about the timing of those submissions, or?
Mr. Hearing Officer, that's probably going to be an important point. I would like the parties to think about page limits, but I'm not dictating things. Hopefully they can agree to what they think they can make their presentation with without being cumulative.
One other item, Mr. Chandler, I guess, you mentioned findings of facts and conclusions of law. Are there other post-hearing submissions that you were contemplating we confer about?
So, Mr. Hearing Officer, I remember someone saying they wanted legal briefs. I don't know if that can be wrapped into the conclusions. I'll let you guys figure that out.
Okay. And then on the assumption that we will be able to complete, I guess it's an open question whether we'll be able to reserve time for closing arguments. In the event we don't, does the commission prefer written closings to go with the findings of fact and conclusions of law? If in the event we do not have time for oral closings?
These are all details for the lawyers to figure out.
Okay, very good. I before we confer, I wanted to know if there was a preference from the commission. I guess that's why I raised it. So
I guess my last word is concise, and excellent findings of fact that I can cut and paste.
Sure, that will be all of our goals. Yeah. Thank you.
I think Mr. Chandler's at a bit of a disadvantage because he wasn't here when these issues were first discussed. Yeah, you know, you guys wanted the oral closing arguments, and if there's time, we'll hear that. I think the point that was made early on in these proceedings is that the commission is probably more interested in findings of fact and conclusions of law than it is. I mean, I know that your erudite closing arguments will be of great assistance to the commission, but by the same token, we all have heard and cringed probably at the jury instruction that says that, you know, what lawyers say is not evidence. So that's just to recap, you know, what we discussed early on before Mr. Chandler was took over the reins here. All right, well, I guess you guys, unless you want to hang around for the duck quack.
But, and I apologize. My understanding was that there'd been some request that on the exhibits we handled earlier today, that we clicked through them with a number assigned to them, just for the record. I'm happy to do that. If that's not something productive, I don't need to do that. But my understanding was someone made that request. Miss Albaduca. This will take 2 minutes or less. If I'll put on the record.
Are these the 14 exhibits that we went over this morning?
So what I have is Empire Cross. All of these will be Empire Cross exhibits. Number 1 will be the simulation model vertical permeability spreadsheet. Number 2 will be simulation model vertical permeability distribution. Number 3 will be 1959 pressure calculation for EME number 20. Number 4 will be Rice's EME 20 bottom hole pressure survey. Number 5 will be Rice's EME 20 wellbore diagram. Number 6 will be pressure depletion from EME 20 BHP in 1959 to RFT pressure points in 1986. Number 7 will be the impact of rock facies on oil saturation. Those are 3 slides. Those are the Scott Burkhead slides. Number 8 will be Grayberg conventional core measurements. Those are 4 slides, being the EMSU 649, 650, 653, and 710. Number 9 will be the SPE 122921, estimates of potential CO2 demand for CO2 EOR in Wyoming basins. Number 10 will be Goodnight fluid level data as of April 7th, 2025. Number 11 will be water saturation from EMSU working interest-centers meeting in 1990. That concludes the numbered exhibits that'll be coming for filing.
Okay, and that doesn't include the one that I have that was not admitted, the economic sensitivity.
That's correct. That one is not in that list.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, thank you for that'll, I guess, make the record clear. Anything further from Goodnight? Or today at least?
No, thank you very much.
Anything further from Empire?
Nothing further from Empire, and we thank the commission and all participants for their patience and time.
See OCD packing up. I suspect that means nothing further.
I have nothing further to discuss, say, or talk about this case the rest of the day. I've said all I got to say.
Rice
Nothing from Rice.
and Pilot.
Nothing further from Pilot.
All right. Well, thank you all for an interesting week. We'll see you back again on May the 19th. Mr. Rosatos, any parting comments or items you need to cover before we go off the record?
No, I do not have anything. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thank you all. Madam Court Reporter will be off the record until May the 19th.
We are off the record. The time is 1:59 p.m.